On a frozen Christmas Eve, when the city was glowing with lights but hearts were closed behind warm doors, a single police dog stopped in the middle of his patrol and refused to move. Snow dusted the pavement like forgotten memories, and in the shadow of a stone building lay two fragile bodies pressed together for warmth, invisible to a world rushing past. What that dog did next did not just save two lives, it reminded everyone what humanity is supposed to look like. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion in unexpected moments, please take a second right now to like this video, share it with someone you care about, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this deserve to be carried forward, just like hope. The police dog's name was Rex, a 7-year-old German shepherd trained for obedience, detection, and patrol. He had served the force faithfully for years, walking the same streets night after night, his senses sharper than any human partner. Christmas Eve was usually quiet for him, filled with routine patrols and the distant sounds of laughter drifting from homes and shops. But that night, something felt different. The air carried not just the cold, but a heaviness, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Rex's paws slowed near an old municipal building, its stone walls cold and unwelcoming. His ears twitched. His nose caught something faint but urgent, the smell of exhaustion, fear, and fading warmth. Curled against the wall were an elderly man and woman, wrapped in thin, worn coats that had lost their ability to protect. The man's arm was around the woman, pulling her close as if his own failing strength could still shield her from the cold. Their hair was white, their faces lined with years of life, love, and loss. Their shoes were soaked, their hands trembling. They had been there for hours, abandoned by circumstance, forgotten by a society that had no room for them on a night meant for family and joy. The city lights reflected off the wet pavement, but none of that warmth reached them. Rex stopped completely. He stood rigid, staring at the couple. This was not a command he had been trained for. There was no instruction, no signal from his handler yet. But something deeper than training took over. He stepped closer, slowly, carefully, his breath fogging the air. The woman's head rested on the man's shoulder, her eyes closed, her breathing shallow. The man's eyes were half open, unfocused, as if he was fighting to stay awake, knowing sleep might be the last thing he ever did. Rex let out a low, controlled whine, not fear, not aggression, but recognition. His handler noticed the sudden stop and tug of the leash, expecting maybe a false alert or distraction. But Rex refused to move. He planted his paws firmly, his body angled protectively toward the couple. The handler followed Rex's gaze and saw what the city had ignored. Training kicked in then, but it was Rex who had made the discovery. Emergency services were called, but time was slipping away. The temperature had dropped below freezing, and the couple's bodies were already losing the battle. As help was on the way, Rex did something unexpected. He lay down beside them, pressing his warm body against their legs, sharing what heat he could. Snow settled on his back, but he did not move. His presence was steady, grounding, alive. The man's fingers twitched slightly, brushing against Rex's fur. The woman shifted, a faint breath escaping her lips, as if the simple contact had pulled her back from the edge. It was a small thing, but sometimes survival begins with the smallest spark. The sirens eventually cut through the night, red and blue lights flashing against the stone walls. Paramedics rushed in, wrapping the couple in thermal blankets, lifting them carefully, urgently. They were hypothermic, weak, and dangerously close to slipping away. But they were alive. Rex stood and watched as they were taken, his tail low, his eyes fixed on them until the ambulance doors closed. He had done his job, though no manual had ever prepared him for this. The couple's names were Harold and Margaret. They had been married for over 50 years. Their life had not been easy, but it had been full. They had raised children, worked hard, and dreamed simple dreams. But time had been cruel. Medical bills drained their savings. Their children moved far away, wrapped in lives of their own. A series of misfortunes led them from a small apartment to shelters, then to the streets. On Christmas Eve, every shelter was full, every door closed. They had nowhere else to go. So they sat together, determined that if this was the end, at least they would not face it alone. At the hospital, doctors worked through the night. Fingers slowly regained color. Breaths grew steadier. Hearts kept beating. Word of their rescue spread quickly, not because of headlines, but because the story felt different. A police dog. an elderly couple. Christmas Eve. It touched something raw and forgotten in people. Nurses whispered about it. Officers shared it quietly. Someone took a photo of Rex sitting outside the ambulance bay, snow still clinging to his fur, waiting. By morning, Harold and Margaret were stable. Weak, shaken, but alive. When they were told how they had been found, how a dog had refused to leave them, tears rolled down faces that had long since run out of them. In a world that had passed them by, a dog had seen them. Truly seen them. The days that followed brought unexpected change. A social worker took special interest in their case. A local charity offered temporary housing. Donations came in after a small local news piece mentioned the rescue, though it focused less on drama and more on humanity. People sent warm clothes, cards, and messages. Some apologized, even though they had never known Harold and Margaret before. Others thanked Rex, as if gratitude itself needed somewhere to land. Rex returned to his routine patrols, but something had shifted. Officers noticed how people stopped to pet him more often, how children smiled when they saw the police K-9 vest. He had become a quiet symbol of something good, something pure. But Rex did not know any of that. He only knew that on one cold night, he had followed his instincts, and it had felt right. Harold and Margaret moved into a small assisted living facility just after the new year. It was modest, but it was warm. They had a bed, a table, and a window that let in the morning light. They held hands more often now, as if aware of how close they had come to losing everything. They spoke about that night not with bitterness, but with awe. They spoke about the weight of the cold, the fading strength, and then the warmth, unexpected, alive, and loyal. A few weeks later, arrangements were made for a visit. Rex walked into the facility with his handler, his nails clicking softly on the floor. Harold and Margaret were sitting together, wrapped in sweaters instead of blankets. When Rex approached, his tail wagged slowly, respectfully. He lowered his head, allowing their hands to rest on his fur. The room felt full in a way words cannot explain. No one spoke. No one needed to. That moment did not fix the world. It did not erase homelessness, loneliness, or neglect. But it reminded everyone present that compassion does not always come from grand gestures. Sometimes it comes from a dog who stops walking. From a refusal to look away. From warmth shared when nothing else is left. As Christmas faded into memory and the city returned to its routine, the story stayed with those who heard it. It stayed because it was real. Because it was fragile. Because it proved that even on the coldest nights, something good can still choose to happen. If this story touched your heart, if it made you pause, feel, or reflect on the lives around you, please take a moment now to like the video, share it with someone who believes in humanity, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps stories like this reach people who may need them more than you know. And before this story ends, I ask you one special thing. Please comment below with a single word that describes how this story made you feel. Sometimes, those words connect strangers in powerful ways. On that Christmas Eve, a police dog found two people the world had forgotten. What he did next did not just shock, it healed, reminded, and quietly changed lives. And in that simple act, he proved that kindness does not need a voice to be heard.